Hello and welcome to Two Dudes, One JYang. Here's your JYang and Clark.
Here's one of your dudes.
Here's another one of your dudes. Clark, how you feeling right now about fantasy freaking football?
I am so excited, man. Football starts tomorrow. I can't wait. And I know a lot of you feel the same. So we got a great show for you guys in store today. We're going to start with a traditional little post-draft power rankings of the teams. Some of you may have figured out that Yahoo does a little power rankings for themselves, but we're not exactly sure how we feel about those power rankings, especially Steen ranked at number 11. He's taken grave offense to that.
Well, the power rankings don't make any sense to me, so I don't know what they're.
So we've decided to once again take the power rankings upon ourselves and inform you all as to our shared opinion.
Because subjectivity is always better than objectivity. And hunches. Hunches are always good.
And along with that, we have a couple other cool features in store for you guys that we can't wait to share. So get ready for another great episode of Two Dudes, One JYang starting now.
Updated, bitches.
So once again, we've tiered our rankings. We just feel like that's the fairest way to go through the power rankings per usual. But we're going to start from the bottom and go to the top once again. Thank you, Steen. So with our bottom tier, we have, was it 3 teams? We have 2 teams. We have 2 teams in the bottom tier. And starting at number 12, Steen, get involved! You haven't made any picks yet, get involved!
Austin, come on, get involved here, Austin, get involved. Austin, get involved. Austin, get involved. You can't, don't let him go for a penny like this. 47, this is a steal. This is a steal, Austin. Get involved. Get involved. This is a steal. Come on, Austin. You don't even have any players yet. Come on. Get involved. Get involved. Come on.
We have, for the second straight video, our good friend, Sir Queefy of the Queef clan. Oh,
yeah.
Poor Jonas.
We hate ranking here.
Yeah, it's really not fun. We'll just rank it number 1 next week if he goes 1-0. That'll be the plan. Jonas's team is interesting as I pull it up.
I think it was just harmed by the keepers.
Because, yeah, the keepers really, I mean, Gronk was fine, but Matt Ryan, well, let's look at Matt Ryan's price. His keeper price was 22, and the next highest quarterback after that was
RG3
pretty much
at 12.
RG3 at 12, which was a little bit of a reach itself.
Yeah.
So when you can take a quarterback for 22 as opposed to like 10,
where just about every other quarterback went,
you're probably going to choose Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
So, no, that was a joke. You don't choose Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
So that put him behind. And also, Toby Gerhart, he should have good volume, but it is the Jaguars. The Walker suspension, the Molly, has definitely mollified Justin's team. Justin. Queefy's team. It started with a J. But
I'm actually excited about, say, Ben Tate. Austin loves Kendall Wright. But then the rest of his team reads like Trent Richardson.
Yeah, you don't want Trent Richardson on your team.
Darren McFadden.
At all costs. And honestly, we could be penalizing him just because Trent.
Martellus Bennett. Frank Gore.
We did say Trent is the new fish, correct?
Yes, we did. So it's just a lot of uninspiring guys.
Let's move on to our number 11 pick. This guy we have in the same tier as Jonas, but we do think that there is a little bit of a gap here. And this is our favorite 1-12 owner.
This is our expert pick for number 11.
Yes, EG's expert team, perhaps not expertly crafted.
Wait, I'm trying to bid.
Always like that.
I'm starting to think the EG stands for Ernie Grunfeld, resembling the infamous Washington Wizards
Pulled out the
general
Ernie
manager, because the management of the team so far with the number 11 spot resembles that of the Wizards with Andre Blatch in the Big Three.
That's brutal.
So, anyway, it's Wilbur.
Let's not forget, Wilbur does have Eddie Lacy. It's solid, and he's got Randall Cobb.
The keepers were good.
And Drew Brees. Definitely, Wilbur was only one of 2 people who went for the
Top
expensive quarterback range. And after you drop off from that, you've got a mix of Decker, who shouldn't be bad, but Steven Jackson's in the mix. That's never good. Golden Tate, very risky and might have some good weeks and will probably be pretty fluky. Johnny Football is on the roster. The only thing for Wilbur is really if he can get some good somehow eke some good ones out early, and maybe Bishop Sankey like really explodes. But I, as a Titans fan, don't see that happening anytime soon. So, really not an inspiring team, and Kyle Rudolph for that price was really a glaring issue when he could have spent a few more dollars on getting a better flex or a better wide receiver too.
Even Cobb isn't like wide receiver 1 caliber.
I mean, I love Cobb, and he's had a lot of injury issues.
You can't list him in that like elite tier of wide receivers.
Then we move up a tier. After that, moving up in the world, we're gonna take it to Henners, who starting off at number 10 is not a bad thing for Mr. Henry.
It's a nice start for Henry's nice team.
He's slowly crawling out of the bushes.
And if you look at Henry's starting lineup, there's nothing abhorrent about his team, which usually by week 10, Henry's team consists of the garbage of everyone else's team.
Which it still might. Let's be real.
This is true, but at week 1 at least we can say that it doesn't. He's got some nice contributors like Doug Martin, who I think is, at least volume-wise, going to have a strong year. I thought Jordy Nelson for 52 was actually not a bad price. Ertz and Hilton, pretty inconsistent, but at the same time, those are the playmakers that might win Henry a couple weeks, along with Torrey Smith as well. But the real problem and why he's ranked where he is because Henry's bench is pretty horrific. He's got, in consecutive spots here, after Darren Sproles, the list of bench players for Henry.
I got this. It's Jonathan Stewart, always inspiring, Doug Baldwin, and Trey Mason, Brian Quick, Garrett Graham, and Malcolm Floyd.
So to put that in context for you guys, Trey Mason is the 3rd running back for the Rams. Brian Quick is a starting receiver for the Rams.
But he's still a starting receiver for the Rams.
But he's a starting receiver for the Rams. Sean Hill?
Terps.
Big things out of Sean Hill, maybe. I mean, okay. It's possible, but I think Henry is better off sticking with Zach Stacy than the other Rams on his team.
Without a super strong elite few and a lot of fluky guys who are a little boom and bust, there could be some real bad weeks for Wilbur.
Henry. This is Henry.
For Henry. But, Henry came close last year to his first playoff appearance ever, so we're wishing him the best of luck. Next up, we've got our intense researcher. It's Mr. Christopher Harris himself. Kevin who?
I read Roto.
Kevin making a splash yet again with his proclamation of a super deep sleeper.
But he doesn't read Roto World.
He doesn't read Roto World this year. So... He's instead switched to the depths of ESPN.
Christopher Harris.
And his good friend John Brown, who wasn't there an historical figure named John Brown? Wasn't there a John Brown's Revolt or something?
I don't know.
John Brown sounds more like a historical figure to me than an actual football player. So that's the kind
sounds like he'd be on the Declaration.
The kind of class riding his bench, along with the always classy Riley Cooper. So along with that, he's got obviously his strong Broncos in Monty.
He's trying to stock up on another one with Cody Latimer. Which he probably thinks he was a genius.
Yeah, congratulations on outbidding me, Kevin. I won't lose sleep over it. He's got Ray Rice in the future, which bumps him up a little bit, but he's still got his starting lineup is bolstered with C.J. Spiller, and Alden can speak onto the risks of C.J. Spiller, as well as Greg
Olsengate.
Greg Olsengate in the starting lineup. It's not an awful team, and there's actually a lot of parity, I think, in the middle this year, but Kevin's team is definitely not inspiring me.
Let's just say if the Broncos don't have a good week, Kevin probably loses.
Yeah, and I mean, last year that really wasn't an issue for him, and they probably won't have that many bad weeks.
This is true.
But there isn't as much of a supporting cast around the Broncos this year. Next up, we've got a big player here in the Big Buddha. Big Buddha checking in at number 8 in our rankings. So, not a bad placement for Big Buddha. What do we think of his team, Clark?
One thing that Tony and I were actually texting about on the night of the draft is balance, and I think that's actually a pretty good way to describe his team. There's no standout position that's outrageously overpowered. He's got pretty much when you expect a top 10 guy in the wide receiver position, he's got Brandon Marshall. When you want a top 20 guy in wide receiver 2, you got Larry Fitzgerald. everywhere that he needs to have a guy within the range of players that he needs, he has him. And he's got a pretty nice bench as well. So in terms of depth and balance, I think we ranked him appropriately here.
Yeah, his team is pretty. It kind of has the look of a snake draft team.
Yeah, it does.
got,
I would have liked a little more upside out of some of his guys, but I think his team is probably a pretty consistent performer week to week.
One of the big things could be how Chris Johnson performs.
That's true. Yeah, if Johnson has a good year,
Yeah,
he's
Johnson's
got a great
a top-
flex for
yeah.
$12 out of Chris Johnson.
Yeah,
It's a team that could, like, as of right now, I can easily see in the playoffs. But am I scared of it as a team that I don't want to play in the playoffs? Not really.
maybe the Blake and Cecil Schwartz connection will help him out a lot. Anything's better than Blaine.
And actually, I do think if Gronk plays a full season, getting Tom Brady where he got Tom Brady is pretty nice.
We should do a things better than Blaine segment.
That's everything.
Like eating poop. It's better than Blaine Gabbert.
That's everything. Yeah, that's just a waste of time. That's everything.
Give us your best here. Here's what we're gonna do.
Dragging your balls through a mile of glass shards.
I would probably
Better
say
than Blaine.
Maybe still better than Blaine Gabbert. What you need to do for this video is a little check-in point is send us in your best hashtag things better than Blaine Gabbert. All right. So like come up with your own thing that's better than Blaine Gabbert.
Waking up to a hippo whale in your bed.
Well, for you, that's better than Des Bryant.
Come on now.
But so send in your best hashtag things better than Blaine Gabbert, and we will reveal the winner of our top one next video. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds good.
All right. Next up at number 7, we've got the appropriately named Joseph's team.
I miss the days of Jockert.
Yeah.
The Jockert.
Jockert, things better than Blaine Gabbert.
Stop. Anyway, actually, this team got really buoyed by the suspension, the Molly Water suspension of Wes Welker, because Emmanuel Sanders is looking like a much better prospect at this point.
Great.
I really liked the Jordan Cameron pick for $16. I think he was actually the first tight end picked, and almost out of fear of overspending, everyone kind of shied away and then ended up picking Zach Ertz at 15, Kyle Rudolph at 18, which allowed Joseph to get, what I think is that last tight end in the top tier, maybe in the second tier, at $16. So I like that pick. The only real problem with Joseph's team, he's got really nice contributors in Keenan, Rodgers, who he might have overspent on, but he might win him a couple weeks, and Peterson. But the real problem is if Bernard Pierce doesn't pan out to be like a viable starter, we're looking at a real issue at flex, because the other guys on his team are the likes of Jarvis Landry.
Jarvis Landry, literally what the F?
I have no idea who he is.
What the flip?
I think he's a former LSU receiver, but I have a pretty good understanding of the depth charts of NFL teams, and even I didn't know about Jarvis Landry.
Maybe Joseph was going for LaRon Landry, former Redskins notoriety. I kind of liked his auction. I kind of liked where he got a lot of the players, but the team itself, maybe were his keepers expensive? I guess Reggie Bush was
a little pricey.
So definitely a pretty solid middle of the road team right here.
I just think like when you spend 41 on Rodgers and the rest of us spend 10 on a quarterback,
He'll
win you a couple weeks, but then it shows up when the rest of your team isn't as strong as everyone else's. But that's the beauty of an auction. We all chose to spend our money how we did, and it ends up being we end up getting some pretty different teams, which is cool to see.
Moving up a little bit in the tier, these teams are not that far away from the last few, but just seems like a little different, and there's some similarities there. Number 6, we've got
the Steens.
The Steens.
No, actually, we should just call it the Steen, like the guild.
Rushteen Wilson.
Oh my God. What?
I don't know.
Andre Ellingstein.
Steven?
Andre Ellingstein.
Steven Ridley.
Stephen Ridley. So my main issue with Austin's team is that he owns Eli Manning. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So I liked Russell Wilson. I think you got him for what, $10? 11. Okay, like him. No, I'm just kidding. It's still a good quarterback pick. I think. Did you know that Russell Wilson only has 2 rushing touchdowns in his career? In what is it, like, I don't know, 36 games or so? I think that goes up. His preseason usage, which normally isn't, doesn't show much, was ridiculous and off the charts. He had like a 78% completion percentage. His wide receivers are the best they've ever been, with the likes of Harvin and Doug Baldwin contributing. Jermaine Kearse is a jump ball specialist. So I think Russell Wilson, they're really starting to turn him away from being a game manager with a fantastic defense and really letting that guy fly around, which is for the best of their team. And then he's got a bunch of other upside guys with Andre Ellington, Foster, who if he stays healthy, getting Foster at $39 is a fantastic value. Orange Julius Thomas is a great keeper for now and the future. And then I like a lot of the bench contributors. You got guys who maybe aren't super sexy fantasy players, but between LeGarrette Blount and Stephen Ridley, even Andrew Hawkins is a potential bye-week fill-in for PPR. Not bad. Aaron Dobson coming back from injury could be a decent vertical threat for the Patriots. So I like this team, the build of the team. He got like a bunch of third and second round type guys, and that's where his money went. And then you can see that, but he got those guys, the ones with upside too. So some of them have issues, but if they pan out, that's the upside of his team. And then he has the mix with the consistent, unsexy fantasy players that'll actually win you games as well.
Yeah. Our next team is number 1 and number 5. So Jeffrey's team is kind of the opposite of mine. That he has some really good top guys, and then some really unproven guys who could be very good, and if they are good, will make him a very good team.
Yeah.
His running backs are obviously stacked in Marshawn and Jamal Charles.
Yeah, I could see at the end of this, I could see like by Monday we're calling Jeffrey's team the number 1 or number 2 team.
Yeah.
If some of these guys play how some guys are predicting they play.
And I could see it then coming down to earth in other weeks. I mean, it doesn't know, but there's definitely some solid possibilities on this team.
And then Deshaun, we haven't seen the Redskins offense. I think he's probably more valuable than Garcon, but it's hard to tell at this point.
And then the bench is consisting of Dwayne Bowe, Christine Michael, Kenny Britt, Roy Halou, Niall Davis. So, like, I like Niall Davis.
Well, Jeffrey basically handcuffed his top guys, and then I'm a little worried about any kind of bye weeks he has, because his bye week fill-in right now is Dwayne Bowe. And other than that, he has no bye week fill-ins. So he's got a little work to do to maybe build his depth up a little bit so that he has somewhere to turn during weeks 4 through, 9.
I mean, he's got a really good core. Just in Marshawn and Charles, like, having that much security at running back, which is definitely
Rare.
less deep than receiver, is really rare and really impressive. So, I mean, that...
And he got Charles for 56, which is
not
pretty
a bad
nice
deal at
to
all.
look at.
Yeah.
And Alden's probably still pissed about Cordero Patterson
Alden
being
is-
on Jeffrey's team instead of his own. Didn't he claim you would have spent like $60 on Cordero Patterson?
I think maybe not that much, but he definitely would have spent more.
Get involved, Steve.
Get involved.
Steve.
Why aren't you bidding?
Kevin, you've made one pick. So at number 4,
Moving up into one more tier.
we have a hot riser in our
Spicy. Guapo, we might even say.
in our resident stab at Sheen.
Arriba!
We have hot Latina mamas. Justin's team at number 4. I think we could have seen this coming because we had him well ranked because of his keepers as well. And I
Might have been
think
number 4
Justin
of his
used
keepers.
the auction pretty well. He got some pretty solid contributors. He had the number 1 overall value player, but there's no real argument against it, I think, with Calvin Johnson for $66. But when you look at where all of those top wide receivers went, pretty much the whole top tier of wide receivers that were available went between 66 and 52, with Jordy Nelson being at 52. I think that's a totally fine move to spend that extra 14 on getting Calvin over, a number 10 receiver as opposed to spending 14 on Lance Dunbar late in the draft. But wait, Justin did that too. Oh shoot. Okay, well,
I think the big thing to look at with Justin's team, as opposed to like something we just talked about with Jeffrey's team, is that he's got those really, really strong 2 receivers, obviously, in Calvin and AJ, and then the rest of his team has some upside and some issues, but we feel like A, those receivers are so strong, and B, really what separates him from maybe the next tier down is his depth. His bench has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Ruben Randall and Hunter are both like talented receivers who can be really good. I love Justin Hunter. I think Justin Hunter is a beast. And if Locker has a good year, I think it's going to be largely through throwing to Justin Hunter. So there's a lot of potential there. And Justin's team has good players at the top and has a lot of people that he could end up filling in.
right.
Michael Floyd, too, is a guy with upside. Currently at his flex.
I kind of like the commitment to the pure pass catching running backs here, though. It's like a new
Yeah.
move that really works in PPR, though.
Yeah.
I also think Jay Cutler in for a pretty monster year if he stays healthy. 3rd overall team, still a member of this second tier.
Is our defending champion, the Gilb.
Yes.
So, the Gilb,
Interesting auction day strategy.
a really interesting strategy. I think he really could have had a better team than this,
Yeah.
the way he started. And I think we all kind of feel that way. And he filled out his bench pretty decently because he had the money to bid on them.
Yeah.
But I feel like he could have. Maybe it's tough because there was a pretty big gap in like the receivers after Jordy Nelson and in the running backs. But I could have seen him going for a guy
like
Ben Tate or someone else. I mean, I think his starting lineup is good. He's got Antonio Brown and Jeffrey.
I loved watching Jennings value get pushed up though.
Yeah.
When Joseph announced he's a Giants fan.
yeah, no, that was good. And
Forte at 55 though, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, comparing his team to Jeffrey's team, or who was the last one? Sorry, to Justin's team. He's still maybe a slight drop off in receiver because he doesn't have Megatron, but he's still got two great receivers, and his running backs are definitely stronger in Forte and Jennings.
Yes.
Especially in Forte. And both are tight ends. Heath Miller versus Charles Clay is no one's really dominating there. So the thing limiting Gilb's team is definitely Charles Clay, as well as maybe Rivers, but Rivers could also have a good year again. He's got some good depth. Yeah, I like Terrence Williams. Danny Amendola has some upside. Lamar, who really knows about Lamar Miller? But he's got a lot of guys who could go off.
And Woodhead is like a very nice bye-week fill-in.
So a good team for Gilb. Another, probably a stronger team than I think he started with last year in his title.
I would agree, yes.
And then we have our number 2 team. This team, very loved by Yahoo. It is Las Tortugas, or just the Tortugas now.
The crown served me well, but now by the gods of sea and sky, make way for Tortuga!
The Tortugas with a really interesting roster compilation here. And really, the most notable thing about Alden's team is the bench, wouldn't you say?
No, I think it's the tying his team to the Eagles.
That's true.
Literally admitted that. I mean, it's pretty clear. He's got Foles, McCoy, Macklin.
Yeah.
Those are your 3 Eagles playmakers, we have to think.
I mean, if you had to compare Alden to one coach, like in mindset, it would definitely be Chip Kelly.
A little skinnier, but
a little skinnier, just a bit.
I think it's an interesting strategy. I mean, it's what Kevin kind of accomplished with the Broncos last year, and we saw where that took him.
Yeah, and I mean, the players are good, obviously, for it.
They get like 80 plays a game.
Yeah.
So it's the Eagles plus the supporting cast of Julio Jones, Julian Edelman,
yeah,
Jordan Reed,
Giovanni
Bernard. Yeah. I think it's a nice little strategy to roll with.
Yeah, his starting lineup is definitely really strong, and his bench is very strong as well. Or at least pretty strong.
Yeah, he might have overspent for a couple guys on the bench, but it might pay off when the Eagles go on bye and he can fill it in with a Mark Ingram or a Fred Jackson. Yeah, but I've liked a little more upside out of his bench, maybe, but I think Alden's going with the known commodity approach here, which I have no problem with, considering his guys are so strong up top.
I like to know Sean a little bit more than you do, and you know that Alden's going to be rooting hard against CJ Spiller, so owning Fred Jackson only lets him do that more.
He loves Fred Jackson, I guess.
So a strong team here.
Yeah, that 211 gave him the chance to definitely fill out a
nice little team. He can either bully people or get shady, and he pretty much got shady. So, yeah. Our number 1 team, the roster baiter himself.
Wayne in the 4th, and then works it. You got Miles Dawson in the 5th. Oh, Montario Hardesty. Chose that one purely based on name. Then went back, did some research. It's like they got him. And then I snuck a little Eli Manning in there. That goddamn mouth-breathing dummy. Such a great
It is Clark's team, with a pretty absurd collection of people at the top in Demarius Dez, DeMarco Murray, Jimmy Graham, which is an incredibly strong top 4, as well as Roddy White, who, as frustrating as he can be, a healthy Roddy White is definitely not a bad player. He's got Josh Gordon, who contributed a lot this year, but besides that, definitely a weaker bench, and we all know about the issues with the RB2 selection.
Some shocking catches. I'm not expecting them.
So that's the current state of Clark's running back 2 position. But besides that, I mean, we know how stacked the team is. We don't need to analyze Dez, Demarius, Jimmy Graham. They pretty much speak for themselves. There's not a ton of upside on the bench, but I'm a little worried about James Jones stepping up a little bit.
I think he got peppered with targets in that Oakland offense, which I know is like kind of an oxymoron when you say targets in that Oakland offense. But I really loved the move to start Derek Carr over Matt Schaub, which can maybe, like, I wouldn't say unleash because we're still talking about the Oakland offense, but can maybe open things up a little bit for those guys. And James Jones is like by far the number one wide receiver.
I know that Tony's trading block is already set, and that he's looking for some wide receivers. He's on the market for wide receivers.
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried that James Jones could have his classic 3-touchdown week, and Big Buddha will be on the market for the touchdowns. So those are our power rankings, Clark. How do you feel about them?
I think they're pretty accurate. A lot to be figured out this first week. As always,
Yeah.
we could have another Joseph explosion for 180 points out of nowhere. But I'm really excited to see how our rankings compare with both Pick'em and then the actual results. So if you haven't put in your Pick'em, do them tonight.
Yeah,
They're
go to the
due-
league. They're due tomorrow night before the games, and
Yeah.
that's not my deadline. That's set. It's really easy to do this year. All you have to do is go to the league. If you click the league button, right on one of those tabs is League Pick'em, and you'll see the new system. It's a lot better, like a million times better, because it actually is a system.
Mhm.
It'll keep the standings for us. It lets you pick all the games right there if you want to. If you just want to go on projections, you can. You can click on the matchup link and get a preview. There's a lot of opportunities there for good stuff.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's go
Yes.
to a little bit of a recap to the draft. Just real quick, because we've already been talking a while. So we're going to go through our top 5 value picks.
Our favorite value picks from our first auction.
Yeah, and our top 5 over picks.
Yeah.
Or should we call them Kyle Rudolphs?
Blunders.
I was going to call them Kyle Rudolphs. But so we have some value picks. Honestly, like they're
At different parts of the board too.
Yeah,
at
everyone-
various points.
a lot of picks were pretty fair, and like I don't feel like there was an obvious like
It's
crazy.
It's interesting to evaluate this because you can't evaluate them against like ADP or auction value in other leagues because our keepers just throw everything completely off. So our values are probably so much more inflated for all these guys that we really had to just compare the value with where we think the value in just our draft was.
relative.
But we like these 5 guys where they were picked.
So our number 5 guy was picked by me actually. It was Arian Foster for 39, and that is not to say that this is a slam dunk pick for sure. But Clark, you can kind of give your reasoning about.
So I just like where when you look at the top tier running backs, obviously Foster has problems. We all know if he gets hurt, if he misses some time, there's a reason that's why he's not in the top tier running backs. But if he fulfills the production of those guys, if he stays healthy for 13, 14 games, getting Foster, even a questionable Foster for those 13, 14 games is well worth the $39 spent. He's a pass catching maven. He probably is where I would put the ball every time in that Texans offense. So getting him at $39 when you're looking at the other top running backs at 61, 55, 56, I think it makes sense.
Number 4 guy is Ray Rice at $16, I believe, by Kevin. So we're gonna give props to Kevin.
So this one's tough.
He doesn't
because
blow asshole with this pick.
We all know the suspension makes things a little mysterious, but we think with $16, a lot of the guys that were thrown out there in that range of money are your like Mike Evans, your Kelvin Benjamins, your upside throwaway, not throwaway, but your upside picks. And I think when you look at those guys and you think which one has a greater chance of really having a contribution on a team, a suspended for 2-week Ray Rice who can come back and do Ray Rice things from 2 years ago has a really good chance of doing that. And he's, again, a really known fantasy value.
Yeah, you wonder if he'll just come back and just abuse some teams this year.
He supposedly looked really good
You
in
didn't
the
catch that?
preseason. Okay, yeah. He abused some teams. And then Bernard Pierce has to play the Steelers and the Bengals in those first 2 weeks. So people that are thinking Bernard Pierce is going to run away with the Ravens job, I don't know how true that is.
And
So I like the
there's
pick.
just not much downside at 16 if he isn't too good. Like he's not gonna just fade away completely.
Yeah, he could be, even in a committee, I could like Ray Rice as a flex, as a weekly flex.
All right, number 3 we've got Demarius for 58, and this relative to just in terms of draft value, it's
Yeah.
expensive, but just to get Demarius for 60 or for 58, whereas Calvin Johnson and Dez went for 65, 66. Even if you did pick one of those other guys, so you set that value, it's still a good value to me. Demarius is an obvious stud, and even the Welker thing helps a little bit in terms of increased targets. But I don't think he really needed them anyway, and I don't think it'll make a significant difference because he's already a beast for sure. And at number 2, we've got Julian Edelman for $19.
So again, this is sort of in the lower range of money. If if you say $19, it's probably in the like 5th round dollar-wise to like equate it to a draft, which again is inflated because of our keepers. But I think Julian Edelman is a 100 catch candidate. Even with Gronk in that offense, Julian Edelman is Tom Brady's new butt buddy. I know that's some pretty lame analysis, but like that's literally we've seen the Patriots throw passes to guys underneath for 6 yards for a full drive. Julian Edelman is your 9-point a drive PPR scorer. He can have a drive like that. I think he's just a valuable guy to have. He's an easy wide receiver too to play in your lineup every week. And to get that at $19, I thought was a great pick.
And our top value pick in the draft is actually from a guy who got rated very low. So it's Ben Tate. Ben Tate, we like the Ben Tate pick.
Jonas picked Ben Tate for $19.
Yeah, and Ben Tate, he's always looked like a pretty talented guy behind Arian Foster. Now he has his own chance to shine, and it's in an offense that is not going to be great.
But it's going to run a lot.
It's definitely going to run a lot.
Yeah. And he's a pass-catching running back.
Of that. So we like Ben Tate. We think there's really good value for a guy who could just be a solid starter. Yeah. To me, a good comparison is like Toby Gerhart, who went for $14 more.
Yeah.
So I think Ben Tate's a really good value there. So the man of the queef pulled that one out of his bench. And that's all we're going to talk about for that one. So we're now going to move on to our poor picks of the night.
Yeah. The blunders.
Starting off with someone who's going to have 2 picks in this ranking. It's the San Francisco defense for $5, which is definitely our lowest priced blunder, but still definitely a blunder. You know, it's not going to ruin the draft for him, but $5 for a defense is...
Well, that's the kind of money you spend for like a clear-cut top performer or defense, which the 49ers this year I don't think anybody thinks they are. They lost Glenn Dorsey for the year. Navarro Bowman's out till like week 10.
Alden Smith
suspended. Dante Whitner's
Ray
not
McDonald,
on their team anymore.
I don't think Ray McDonald was suspended yet.
I think it's a good fantasy defense, but it's not one that you should be spending $5.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that we see them on the waivers at some point than we do them being a top 4 defense.
Yeah. I think if you spend $5 on defense, you need to be able to play them every single week. Yeah. Matchup proof. And I don't think you can do that with 49ers this year.
Next up at number 4, we've got Pierre Garçon by Kevin for 32. So Kevin giveth with his pick of Ray Rice, but taketh away with Pierre Garçon.
Garçon had a massive year last year. He led the league in catches, but the problem is that he now has so much other competition for targets. Yeah, he can't lead the league in like 190 targets this year. I'm not even sure, as a Redskins fan, how confident I can be in that Redskins offense. I think Garçon has a good year, but he doesn't have a year anywhere close to the year he had last year.
Yeah, and that's a pretty expensive tier of receivers to be caught in with a 32 price.
I think Ray Rice might contribute to his team more than Pierre Garçon this year.
It's definitely possible. Number 3, Kyle Rudolph, as we mentioned before, for $18. And
I like Kyle Rudolph, but I don't like him for $18.
I mean, you could just feel like watching that pick go up. I was like, why is this still going up? Like, I thought once it got to 11, it was ridiculous. Similar with Zach Ertz.
Ertz is more of like an upside high tight end 2 than where he was drafted at 15. You had who I think is the 4th best tight end in that last tier of tight ends, Jordan Cameron, going for 16. Rudolph for 18 is hard to give. I know the Norv Turner loves this tight end coaching stuff, so I do think it's a good year to be a Kyle Rudolph owner, but for $18, it's a little steep in my opinion. You could have had Ray Rice.
Could have had Ray Rice, yeah. Our number 2 and our top 2 are just sort of WTF ones. One has some strategy to it. Our number 2 one is the Lance Dunbar for 14.
Yeah.
Yes, on the one hand, Justin was handcuffed at that point. Not to talk about handcuffs, but
he had one last player to pick up, so he spent all of his money on Lance Dunbar, who was the player on the auction. And I was trying to get my handcuff in Lance Dunbar, but I think it's in terms of the actual pick, it's hard to talk. We can't talk about it because there's obviously just he needed to spend all his money.
But it's a testament to where else his money could have been spent. Yeah, and we know Justin has a pretty good team, but could he have gone a little bit higher in one of his players?
Yeah,
Could he have gone better than
$3 and a couple other players to get him.
more than 3? I mean,
Dispersing that 14 over 3 or 4.
just
other
look at tight end. Like he could have had a Jordan Cameron or
instead of a Heath.
Instead of a Heath Miller. Yeah,
That's true.
and it's just hard to justify Lance Dunbar for $14.
No, you can't
Yeah,
justify that at
that's
all.
Now, number 1 was you would think it was from a team that had $16 left and one person to buy, but it was not. It was Mr. Henrico with the.
Well, he only had a defense to buy.
He only had a defense. Another testament to where else you should spend your money. And when we basically 10 times told Henry, try to bid up a little bit more on this guy so that someone else doesn't get him. And instead, Henry settled on 16 for Malcolm Floyd, which
was enjoyable for the rest of us
Yeah.
to witness, but not a good decision
No.
on the whole. Look at his bench, and you'll understand where he could have
Yeah.
spent $16.
it would have been a big difference for a potential Henry's playoff run. So let's move on from that. Congratulations, Henry, for another crown to add to your trophy case. Our last segment for the night is our walk down memory lane. Last week we had a great one of Kevin losing in the championship. This one we're just going to discuss a little bit more. We both were recalling the live draft from year 2 as one of our favorite moments of FEGM, both the poker tournament that night, followed by the whirlwind of a 2 a.m. start time for a draft after AJ and Jonas's football game, lots of Burger King, and all kinds of stuff that night. At the time, it probably was frustrating and head-scratching, and sitting around the pool table at 4 a.m. was difficult to stay awake. I know a lot of people couldn't, and that's where Michael Vick and Jamarcus Russell ended up being initially drafted. But it was a lot of fun. The Kamishkit board, big memory for me.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful thing, putting the stickers on. So, Clark, where would you rank this draft in comparison to that and the other drafts?
I believe that this year's first-time auction was our second best draft experience. In terms of memorable Jason Witten chant moments, we didn't have any of those. But just from the consistent experience from minute 1 to the last minute, when we still had 3 or 4 guys who'd filled out their teams and were just sticking around to watch how it finished, I thought it was really fun just the whole time. Being able to participate in every single pick instead of having to wait 30 minutes with Joseph spending 2 minutes on his pick every time and people just making weird noises because it wasn't their turn to pick. I thought it completely changed the draft experience, and I love moving to the auction format.
Yeah.
Which goes to show that if we ever had a in-person live auction, I think that would have the only chance of unseating our live draft from, 4 years ago. But this year, definitely number 2 in my mind, and a close number 2. I had a lot of fun with the auction, even as all of my running back 2s were taken from me. I thought that was an interesting part of the draft, along with everything else that happened. So thank you all for participating and making that as fun as it was.
What would you put as your number 3 draft? To me, this is year 6, right?
Yes.
To me, I would probably put last year's. Just some moments.
Last year's was good, just because that was the first time we did a successful Google Hangout too, where everybody was there. Last year's was good.
Yeah, the year before was Joseph making horrifying noises all whole draft.
But
Redskins, or whatever he was doing.
Well, I thought people also knew their crap really well this year too.
Yeah.
We've evolved from the league of Alden tearing apart everybody's picks to it's pretty hard to find these draft day blunders aren't as easy to find this time.
Hold on though. Henry did probably ask, "Who's that guy?"
Yes,
for about
some of us have
15 players. It's literally every new person in the league.
Some of us still do not understand that new rookies come in every single year and are fantasy contributors. So some of us need to catch up on that. But
who's
otherwise,
Sammy Watkins? Henry needs to expand his research outside the Colts.
And Ben Jarvis Green Ellis.
Ben Jarvis Green Ellis. Yes.
Anyway.
Wait, we forgot to mention Ben Jarvis in our list of blunders.
Blunders, that's true.
All right, well, that's
number
just
6 blunder. Ben Jarvis
number
Green
1, but
fine. Number 1.
Number
Ben Jarvis
1.
Green
Yeah.
Ellis.
Sorry, Henry, you have the top 2. Official.
Potential keeper there though.
for the free agent squad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much it for this week.
Yeah.
Remember
no ice buckets this week.
No ice buckets. Remember to tweet in the hashtag things better than Blaine Gabbert. with or not tweet it. You can Facebook it or Yahoo it. We're gonna try to move most conversation to the league. Another thing you can put is whether you prefer because there's definitely individual matchup chats for Yahoo, but it doesn't seem like there's a group chat feature. So either I'll make a thread on the Yahoo page each week, or we can make a Facebook group. We might want to do a Facebook group instead of a thread from now on because it's hard to find things put up in the messages. That might be an idea. But let me know what your thoughts are on that, of how you'd want to communicate with the whole league this week, whether you want it to be a Yahoo thread or a Facebook group with a long comment section. That might be good too. Or if you just want to comment on the matchups. So those are the two things we are looking for from you, as well as any feedback, comments, questions, things you want to see next week or you want us to talk about, because, obviously we could definitely we had plenty to talk about, but we can always use what you guys want to see from it. So I think that's pretty much it. Looking forward to week 1. Yeah. Football is back. Make sure you get your pick'em picks in. Don't forget that. And this is us signing off from 2 Dudes, 1 JYang. Peace.